he was a Swiss psychiatrist who came from a religious background. His father was a Swiss Reformed pastor. His grandfather, also in Basel, was a very high-ranking Swiss clergyman on the one side. On the other side, his other grandfather was a medical doctor and became the head of the medical school at the University in Basel. And Jung chose medicine over theology at his father's advice. His father said, there isn't much of a future in theology. You better study something else. So Jung chose medicine because it was practical and he could earn a living. They didn't have very much money. I also grew up in that kind of family. My father was a pastor. I know the situation. You live well, but you don't have much of an income or cash. And so he got a scholarship from an uncle to study medicine at the university. I got a scholarship from Yale University to study there, and I got my undergraduate degree and a divinity degree from Yale. Jung studied at the University of Basel, got his medical degree, and then he went to Zurich to study psychiatry under a rather well-known psychiatrist of his day named Eugen Bleuler. And Bleuler is the man who named schizophrenia. Previous to that, it had been called dementia praecox. In other words, early form of dementia. And Bleuler reevaluated it and gave it a new name, and that has stuck. So the Burgholzli Clinic in Zurich was very famous in its day, and it's still quite well known. It's part of the medical school at the University of Zurich. And Jung did his psychiatric training there, and while he was there, he made contact with Freud, who was just beginning to become well known outside of Vienna in 1900. And so Jung became a Freudian for a period of time, worked very closely with Freud. Freud chose him as his crown prince to succeed him when he would die, but that didn't work out. And Jung broke away in 1912, 1913, and formed his own school called Analytical Psychology. And a group of people formed around him. The school did very well. It drew students from many countries, specifically UK, England, and the United States, but also other countries like Germany and France, came to study with Jung in Zurich, and gradually a school built up there. And after the Second World War, a training program was set up by his students called the C.G. Jung Institute of Zurich. That's where I studied in 1970. Jung died in 1961, a famous man, had been on the cover of Time magazine in the United States, had received honorary degrees from Oxford and Harvard and other places. So he did very well in his career. But he struggled to find himself, particularly after his break with Freud. He had to really go deeply into his own way of thinking and construct a whole new psychology. That was over a period of about 10 years. He did that work, and then he was ready to enter into the public realm with it, and continued evolving it for the rest of his life. There are 18 volumes of his collected works that represent his major writings. Doesn't include everything, but most of what he wrote is contained in the collected works.